We're meeting with people right now with the team, and I think I'll be finished with all those individual meetings by the end of today. And so, we'll dress out. Everyone will dress. It's just a matter of who's going to warm up. We just have 20 people. There's not enough space for them. So we'll dress. We'll have 16 people, kind of warm up.
John McKelvey with the Arizona Daily Star. You guys had a 10-11 record last year, but obviously the season didn't get off to the start that you wanted. What do you think of last year now that you've had a chance to breathe and just look back?
Well, I'm pretty thankful that we had a year. It was dicey for everybody. The future was uncertain, and I think for this group, because we had so many new players into the program, so the fact that we got a year under our belt and we have made progress every single week. We started off pretty shaky and kind of expecting to be a little inconsistent, especially when you open up with conference. There's no non-conference play to kind of get you ready. You're opening up with Utah on the road, and they're preseason pick number 1 in the conference. So we were trending in the right direction, I think, throughout the year. And at the end, the culmination was being on the road at Washington, playing and beating a ranked team. And so I think overall we felt that had the tournament been a 64-team bracket that we would have been selected. We finished, I think, 5th in the conference. So considering that I think we were picked to be like 10th or 11th in the conference and finishing 5th, and that's with the caveat, because with COVID, teams being out, teams not practicing. Last year was such an awkward year for everybody. I just felt fortunate that we had an opportunity to train the players and had an opportunity to play.
You talk about training some of those young players. Sophia, Jalen, and Emery both stepped in and
Right.
just right away contributed. What do you think of their ability to handle a situation like that and still be able to play meaningful roles?
Yeah, I think for players that, like for someone like Sophia, where the system of volleyball is so much different than what she's coming from. Technically it's different. The system is different in terms of what we play. For her to make that transition so quickly was, pretty remarkable. Jalen and Emery, I don't think the transition was as difficult because they're playing in a similar American system. But still, when you're relying on freshmen and new players, it could be an adventure every single match. And so we were fortunate. We had Kamiley that was there. Paige really played an instrumental role in our ability to kind of keep things smooth and calm on the floor. I think the big thing this year is we don't have someone like Paige that can just step in and know what to expect from one day to the next or one match to the next. And so we're pretty young in that respect.
How important is it to have a non-conference schedule this year so you can tinker with your lineups and just kind of get
Right.
a better feel for your team?
Yeah, I think for all the teams, we're fortunate and feel like the non-com will be give us opportunity to kind of see what the lineups are going to be like. We don't have to play someone right out of the gate that's going to be a conference level play team, and so. But it's nice to be able to kind of build up our resume in a sense. I've always said that non-conference plays a bigger part in who gets selected to the tournament than the conference play. We don't have to worry about RPI within the conference because the conference RPI is so good. Now we're really the non-conference, and the teams that you beat or the teams you lose to really play a much more significant part on your body of work and how it's getting evaluated by the committee than the conference play. So the fact that we've upgraded I'm not quite sure if that's the smartest move for me, but I think for this group, because we're significantly more talented, but we're young, that worries me.
And the 3 teams that are coming in here this weekend, what do you think about them?
I think they're good teams for us. I don't know much about Marist. I know they're well coached. Sean Byron's a terrific coach, and they return, I think, their entire starting lineup. So I think that they're pretty old and a team that's pretty young. That's not always a great combination. But I know that New Mexico State's going to give us everything we can handle. They're a very good team, a lot of success. They return a good portion of their lineup. That's going to be a big match for us. And then we play them again the next week. So I think that regardless of what happens, there's always going to be another opportunity to play the following week. And UCSD, I believe this is the first year they're actually in the Big West. And so for them, it's going to be a good transition. Ricky Ludes is the head coach there, is one of the all-time great Bruin men players that I played against many years ago, and one of the all-time great beach players. And so he certainly knows his way around the game, and I think they'll be pretty competitive in a relative sense.
On Saturday, you had 3 players out. Are they back?
Yeah. Let's see. Ava's back, so she was back, fortunately. Jen is still in protocol, and Elena is going to come out of quarantine tomorrow, but it's going to be probably another week before we can get her back to playing full speed. So I'm trying to keep everybody healthy, you know. I mean, we had a little bit of a scare yesterday with Merla, thinking that she got kind of ricocheted a ball off of her, and we're going, oh God, now we're down to 2 middles. Started the season with 5, and so right now I feel like Puck had a migraine today. She didn't come to practice today because she had a migraine, so we're kind of going through all of that, and trying to manage the best we can.
How do you explain how, I guess, injury-prone your team has been? It seems like a lot of it is, like you said, taking a ball off the head. It seems like it's such bad luck, but it happens every year.
It's such a random thing, and I think it wasn't. I think it was 2 years ago we had more concussions than football. I mean, it's just hard to explain that, and don't get me started on the concussion deal. I'd probably say something I shouldn't. So, but anyway, that's kind of what we've had our first concussion already, and we're hoping that's the last one that we're going to deal with. But the chances are pretty unlikely that's going to happen. We'll see.
Why do you think it's gone up so much in volleyball? Do you think it's the power of the women has increased? Is it just more, you're looking for it more? What do you think?
Well, I think that there's more advancement in concussions, certainly. I think in the sport of volleyball, what happens is that in football, you know what's going to happen. So when you're prepared versus a random hit and it catches you by surprise. And so I think that's the big difference. In volleyball, if a ball deflects off someone and hits you in the face, which oftentimes that's what happens, and so you're unprepared for that, so you're not tense and not, and so I think those are the things that really happen in volleyball. It's just, the randomness of it and catching you off guard is what causes the concussion. That's the theory. I don't know.
Getting back to the schedule, you have Texas in your non-conference. Right. Do you use a game like that or a match like that as a measuring stick? Do you build up to that? Or are you going to use that as a chance to really evaluate your team?
That's a good question. I think, we played Texas. The last time we played them, I think it was their place. They came to us, or vice versa. I think playing Texas for us we're probably a year away from playing them again. And with this lineup, I think we'd be. I think it would be maybe a more competitive match, but we'll see. I think that's a good opportunity for us. It's a good RPI match for us, and we have nothing to lose with that match. If we play another team that's close to Texas that maybe isn't ranked anywhere near where Texas is ranked, I think everybody in the country is like, okay, Texas is going to roll right through Arizona. And so from an RPI standpoint, it's good. We're expected to lose, and if we lose, that's not a big deal. Versus if we're expected to win against another team and we end up losing against a team that we're supposed to beat, I think that's a much more difficult match. So playing Notre Dame, I think, is a much better match for us. I think they're a very good team and probably similar to us. Texas right now, they returned their entire lineup from a team that they lost in the finals, and we're going to play them at their place. So they're exceptionally physical. I mean, they got so many big, giant kids. But I like the weekend for us. I think an opportunity for us to see a team that most likely will be in the Final Four again. And if we're going to kind of aspire to be at that level, which we do, then I think it's important for us to face those kind of teams. Although we get a lot of that in the conference anyway, so it's not like that much different. But there's not a team in the conference that's as physical as Texas at this point.
Well, that was my next question is, how do you see the conference? Because Stanford obviously had a bizarre season last year. In many senses, you guys are well ahead of other teams because you had 21 matches last year.
So how do you see it? Well, the teams that did well in the tournament are the teams that had a fall. So there was ACC and the SEC and the Big 12 all had a fall, where we didn't have. The Big 10 and us and the West Coast Conference didn't have any fall matches. And so in the sport of volleyball, those repetitions and the opportunity to play against matches really, like I said, developed those kids, the young kids. And so when they came in, even though they didn't have as many days, they built a foundation, a much greater foundation than we did. We come in the spring and in January, and we're still trying to play catch up. Well, those guys have already been through, a dozen to a 20 match schedule. So I think that we're with everything. I think the playing field is much more level now across the country. Where last year at the end of the spring and going into the tournament, I don't think it was level. I think the teams that had a fall and competed in the fall were ahead and had a significant advantage against those other teams.
With respect to the conference, with your conference opponents, do you feel like you guys have a leg up on them? I mean, with all the matches that you guys got?
Yeah, I think that the teams that were able to, because we only got one match canceled, right, out of all, and so I think that, again, I think the playing field is somewhat level because we had so many young players and a lot of teams. The thing that's going to influence this year more than anything in the conference is the super seniors. I think that is going to be, how that affects Washington. They had 3 seniors that are all coming back. Utah's got one of the best players in the country, Danny Drew's coming back. UCLA's got USC. So all those top teams that are ranked ahead of us in the preseason poll all have, terrific players that normally would have graduated. So the downside to that is that those kids that normally would have graduated are taking spots away from kids that normally would have played. So that won't come into play for another year. Now they're, have these terrific teams, and how we match up to them, we'll see. I mean, that's where youth and inexperience sometimes rears its ugly head. We're trying to give them as much experience. Right now we have no identity. We're talented, we're young, we're really good. It's a talented team as I've had in a long time, but we have no personality, no identity yet. You kind of have to go through the growing pains to kind of develop that. Trying to create some of that in practice, but at this stage, we still got a ways to go before some of those intangible things need to be developed to become an elite level team.
How do you create that?
Pardon?
How do you create that in practice?
Well, there's a lot of scoring system. We talk about it a lot, and right now I'm trying to figure that out. So, but a lot of it is just growth and maturation, and then hopefully giving them feedback, and then they take that to heart and they have some self-awareness about it.
Kind of a follow-up on that. What do you hope, or what do you think the identity of this team will be?
The hope and the what?
What do you hope the identity of this team will be when it's all said and done?
When it's all said and done?
Yeah.
For this year or for the?
For this year, what do you think the identity of the team can be?
I think that's a good question. I think that we're a tournament level team. We got enough talent, and then I think once we get to the end of the season, these next 12 weeks, next 14 weeks is really going to make a difference. So by the end, I think that we'll be an excellent team and have a chance to go make a deep run. Our goal is to get the round of 16. We get invited, and a lot of it depends on who your matchup is, but we'll be an outstanding team by the time the season ends. The key is, can we win enough matches from now to be selected? And so the non-conference becomes a big deal. So, my thought has always been you need to walk out of non-conference at 10-2, all right? So that if you can win 8 matches in the conference, then you're going to be 18-14 or 18-15, and that typically will get you in the tournament. It just kind of depends on what other teams do, but you got to kind of walk out of here with at least 10 wins, maybe 9 wins. But our conference schedule, our non-conference schedule is pretty competitive. So, if we can walk out of there, I feel like if we can walk out of here at 10-2, then the chances of going to the tournament, that's significantly better.
How normal does this season feel so far?
How normal?
Yeah.
The fall camp has been pretty normal. I haven't pushed them as hard physically because they're just not in shape as good as they normally would be. But typically, right now, I think it's been a pretty normal fall camp for me. It's been good. It's a wonderful group of kids, hardworking, no drama. not a lot of no bad personalities, none of the stuff that sometimes I've had to deal with in the past, not mentioning any specific years.
You were talking about Jalen at the end of the red-blue match. In what areas has she improved the most?
Well, her back row for sure. She's going to be the 6 for us, so she's got to be playing the middle back defense, hitting the pipe, and playing the defense. It's like in baseball terms, a 5-tool player. She's got to be exceptional in every single one of those skills.
Young players, you talked about the identity being tied closely with you guys want to be a tournament team, and you talked about wins and losses and the numbers. Is it hard to approach a lot of young players like that with such a wins-focused mentality, or just like win, that's our goal?
So, the great thing about youth is their enthusiasm. The bad thing about youth is lack of experience, and so fortunately for us is that even though they're young, they're receptive and understand conceptually what we're asking them to do. The hard thing is the skill part is easier to develop than the behavior part of it. The behavior part of it is really the one that takes the longest and they got to be willing and receptive to make those kind of changes. And so I think that's being it to their attention all the time and talking to them about it. Hopefully that will spur them to make the behavior changes that we need to make and accelerate the change. But my experience has been is that the behavior changes that we're asking them to make, it takes some time, more time than the skills. I'm hoping I'm answering the question that you asked. I'm not sure, but I wasn't sure. Couldn't hear it all.
I'm just asking because, you have a young team. You have a team that's going to develop hopefully here for over the years. Right. To say, to tie your success so closely with your win-loss record or your NCAA tournament, right. I wonder if that's tough for a lot of young players to embrace and to handle that kind of mentality.
This particular group is been very receptive and hasn't been fighting everything that the changes that we've been asking to make. And I think that's one reason I'm so optimistic about this particular group and then the future, because the bulk of the team is freshmen and sophomore who are going to be playing. And so I think that, and I talked to them about not just this year, I talk about this group staying together for the following 2 or 3 years and what that picture is going to look like. And so, but as always, we want, as coaches, we want it to be faster than possibly it's possible for us to have those things happen for us. And we'll see. It's going to be a work in progress. I hate using that statement, because all the coaches use that statement, but it probably fits best. It's just every week we'll continue to get better. This week is much better than last week, and so forth and so on. And I think after 4 weeks of non-conference season, we'll be a completely different group, assuming that we're healthy. That's the other part of it. I mean, the COVID and the concussions and whatever it would be. I had Sophia playing opposite today because Puck wasn't there. So, and Merla didn't play today because I was afraid of a concussion. So I had Nicole. So, you're not set on a set lineup when you got those kind of kids out.
Any more questions?
You guys, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Yeah. Looking forward to hopefully a great year.
Yeah.